in my heart.
Benvenuti qui su Queen Fans Italia Worldwide. Questa volta abbiamo un ospite speciale. Sono qui insieme a Veronica May. Ciao Vero.
Ciao.
Abbiamo qui Peter Flintstone. Ciao Peter.
Ciao.
Ciao Peter. Sono veramente felice, è un onore per noi averti qui e ti faremo tante domande. So che adesso uscirà il tuo libro, quindi comincerei subito a farti una domanda sul tuo libro. Quindi parlaci un po' del tuo nuovo libro.
Okay, first and foremost, thank you for being here. As I said, it's a pleasure and a honor. And since we know that there is a book that's coming, as the first question, we would like to know a bit about your new upcoming book.
Okay, well, basically it's my autobiography. Basically I suppose it starts a little bit before 1955 when I was born, because there's a little bit about my parents. And it goes through until August 2020 when I became a Czech citizen. So, I mean, there's 5 chapters and Freddie is the middle chapter. So it's showing how the person that Freddie chose to work with him grew up, how I developed, and then afterwards what I've done with what I've learnt from Freddie, what he taught me. That's 5 chapters. Then there is a 6th chapter, which is in fact an album which can be downloaded with a QR code and that sort of thing. I did the lyrics for the songs, which again, it's all situations that sort of Freddie found himself, whether it was touring, whether it was in love, that sort of thing. So my text describes Freddie's feelings, and of course Milan and Devin have recorded the songs. So that's chapter 6.
Okay.
Ok.
Interesting.
Peter, potrai già dirci un attimo quando uscirà in italiano oppure ancora presto?
So, I don't know if it's too soon to talk about that, but can you tell us when will it be available in Italian?
Haha, no, I can't tell you. We have approached someone and we are basically waiting for a meeting, because of course neither Milan nor myself speak Italian, and the publisher, the lady in the department there, doesn't speak English. So we're trying to find some sort of translator. Either we find a translator or she finds a translator, and then we'll try and sort something out.
Okay.
Peter, sei autore di vari libri che noi conosciamo bene. Puoi descriverli per chi ancora non li conoscesse? Sei
Okay.
legato anche in maniera specifica ad uno in particolare? Se sì, perché?
Okay, so you wrote several different books, which are very well known among us fans. And so, would you please give us a brief general overview for those who still don't know about them? And we wanted to know is there a book you're particularly attached to? If yes, which one is it and why?
Okay, the first book, again, it started off life as a limited edition back in 1998. David Evans and I actually, basically it was therapy sessions for me. But David wrote every word I said down. And after about, 2 years of this, he actually said to me, do you realize that there's more words here than you have in a book? And there were people, even then in 1997, were asking me all about Freddie, what I could tell them about him, what he was like, you know, who was the real Freddie Mercury, all of that sort of thing. So we decided we would print and publish ourselves 1,000 copies, thinking that, you know, that should be enough, you know. Apparently it wasn't, because an editor from Music Sales, Omnibus, got a copy and said that they wanted the book. So they actually took it over. And that's why it was actually put out in, I think, 9 different languages, because it was through a major publisher. The second book David wanted to do was about what happened after Freddie died, how the image and the name of Freddie still carried on, how basically his life still went on because of fans, because of the fans' love of him and the music. I then, again, this was a total accident. I had on my computer, I had all these recipes that I'd just put them all together. I mean, for no real reason, well, it was actually in the second part of the second book. And then someone here in Czech sort of was looking over my shoulder and saw these recipes and said, well, what is this? What's this all about? And so I explained. And so there was a recipe book as well, which I don't know how many years ago that came out. But again, it was only in Czech and in English. And as far as I'm aware, there are no more copies. I will have to check on that, but that's it. And then, as I say, this book, but this is, I've tried not to repeat myself, but with Freddie, you know, I just tried to explain a little bit more about this complex person that was Freddie Mercury. I'm trying to think now what I've actually written in there, but I've talked about his character, about a day in the life of, I mean, lots of different things, hopefully, than from the first book. There are also in the English edition that is coming out, the special edition, because we've done a limited edition of 1,946 copies. And in this specific edition, there are photographs that have never been seen before. I had in the attic, in the loft at home, I knew I had a box of photographs, but I thought it was all my own, you know, personal photographs. But I dug it out and I went through the whole box, and there were a number of photographs of Freddie that I had just forgotten about, totally forgotten about, including some photographs that he had given me. They were Polaroids from before my time, and he gave me a whole big stack of them. So I've included some of those in the book. So it's things that have never been seen.
Okay.
Ok, Peter, allora io direi di cominciare con qualche domanda su Freddy. Il primo incontro che hai fatto con Freddy quando è avvenuto?
Okay, so we're thinking of starting with some Freddie related questions. So simple as that. When did you meet Freddie for the first time?
The first time I actually met him was in October 1979. I was working for the Royal Ballet at the Royal Opera House in London, looking after stage costumes, you know, making sure they were clean, ready, putting them on the dancers. They do the show, I take them off, get them ready for the next show. And in October 79, the Royal Ballet, I mean, every year they used to do a big charity gala, and they wanted someone different this time. They wanted someone, that the audience wouldn't expect. And they actually got hold of Freddie because, I mean, in those days he was still wearing ballet slippers and, those, the Harlequin outfits, all of those sort of things. Apparently he just said yes as soon as they approached him. He actually performed Crazy Little Thing Called Love, which was just released as a single at that point, and Bohemian Rhapsody, doing a quick change on stage behind a wall of dancers, everything. And he was being manipulated around the stage throughout the performance. I went and spoke with him after the show, and I just had to say to him how I thought his voice, Queen music, and Royal Ballet dancers was just amazing. It was just brilliant. And he was so polite. He just, that's very, very kind of you to say something like that. No, thank you very, very much. And we just sort of talked for a couple of minutes. And then he sort of said that, he'd seen me at the Opera House. What job did I do? And so I explained about looking after the costumes, putting them on, taking them off, getting them cleaned. And that was the end of the conversation. But about a week, 10 days later, someone from Queen Management rang up my boss to ask if I would be available to do a 6-week tour with Queen, looking after the stage costumes. So that all started in October 1979. I had actually seen him before then, a couple of times. I remember the very first, and I talk about it in the book. I saw him when I was having tea in the Rainbow Room in Biber.
Oh.
And Freddie and Mary arrived. And I mean, it was so weird. I was talking to the person I was with, but all of a sudden, all eyes were drawn towards the door. And there was Freddie in the fox fur jacket and Mary on his arm. I remember that. So it's still here. It is still here. And that was back in 1972, 73.
Okay.
Okay.
Lucky.
That's been my life.
Oh, yeah.
Ok, Peter, allora conviverci per 12 anni è stato impegnativo, immagino. Ti sei subito adeguato al ritmo di una rockstar a livello mondiale?
Okay, so you lived with Freddie for 12 years, and we were wondering, was it difficult? And I mean, did you easily get used to a worldwide known rock star's habits? Or was it a bit hard to, get used to his rhythms and stuff?
The thing is, I don't know that his habits were any different than an ordinary person, a normal person, than anybody else. I don't think he specifically had rock star habits. He was probably the most anti-rock star that I ever met through him. There's not that many. I mean, maybe Elton could be in the same category, but Freddie loved classical things, and he loved art, he loved crystal, he loved all those sort of things, not the things you traditionally think of as a rock star's collection. He loved going to the theatre, he loved going to the ballet, not to other rock concerts or anything. Of course, he loved drinking, he loved parties, he loved all of that sort of life as well. But the thing is, you look around the world now, and so do all the bankers, so do solicitors, so do everybody. So his habits were not really that different.
Okay.
Peter, che cosa ti ha insegnato Freddy? Che cosa ti ha veramente lasciato?
So, what did Freddie teach you? I mean, what memories did he give you?
We haven't got enough time to tell you everything. Hopefully, a lot of it is described in the book. For me, Freddie was the most amazing teacher, because every day with him, you learnt something different, you learnt something new. I learnt from him the real value of friendship. I learnt from him how you should prize loyalty above so many other things in your life. I learnt about art. I learnt about actually recording rock music because of him. And also, if you think, I was there while they recorded the Barcelona album, so it wasn't even only rock, it was this mix of so many different things. I was there for, every day was something new. There was something new. I mean, of course, it wasn't only new things all day. Most of the day is, a standard. You get up, he has breakfast, he does this, life was normal. But every now and then, you just sort of step back and think of something that has just happened. And you just think, okay, I know this has happened before, but now it actually meant something. I learned about love from him. That, and this is one of the songs, that love is not a quantity. There is not 100% of love anywhere. It's a quality. If you fall in love with someone and give them your whole heart, then you find a new friend that you want to be friends with and give them some love. You don't take love away from someone to give to someone else. It's just never ending within you. So it's a quality. There's not a limited quantity of love. I learned how to really talk to people, with people. As I say, it's difficult to pick any one thing because there was so much that I did learn from him.
Okay.
Sì. Perfetto, Peter. E niente, volevamo sapere se avete mai litigato in tutti questi anni e se sì, per cosa. C'era qualcosa di lui che facevi fatica a sopportare, per esempio.
Okay. You can answer this question only if you're comfortable sharing, okay? You're free not to answer this if you don't want to. But have you ever fought with Freddie? And if yes, and if you want to say why? Why so? Was there something you couldn't stand about him?
No, not really. We just got to know each other too well for things like that. There was something that sort of exasperated me more than annoyed or anything like that, was the fact that Freddie was convinced that he had a really good American accent. So that whenever he went to New York or to America, he would put on this accent. And he was convinced he sounded really American. But I remember talking to a couple of his friends, and they said that, look, because he believed so much in how good it was, they didn't want to destroy his image of himself, and actually tell him that it sounded like mid-Atlantic. The accent was mid-Atlantic. It still had a lot of English in it, with a little bit starting of America before he got there. That was the only thing that I can really think of. As I say, it wasn't annoying. It wasn't anything like that. We just got on again through the book. We had very, very similar upbringings. He was in a boarding school in India for so many years. I was in a boarding school in India for so many years. We understood each other. Half the time we didn't even have to talk to each other. And we knew what each other was thinking, how to go do things, what things would happen.
Mhm.
Ok, Peter. Allora andiamo avanti con le domande. Volevamo chiederti, per noi fan, Freddy era una persona forte e decisa, ma c'era anche qualcosa che lo commuovesse?
Okay, this is another question that you're free not to answer to if it makes you uncomfortable. So, to us fans, Freddie was always seen as a very confident person, especially on stage, you know. But was there something that somehow made him emotional? Have you ever seen him crying, for example?
That's strange. I was thinking, in fact, about this a few days ago. I don't think I ever saw him cry.
Oh.
Never. Thing is, the person that everybody knows, the person from the stage, the giant, the amazing performer, the person who had, I mean, if you think of Live Aid, he had the whole world in the palm of his hand. That was the total opposite of the Freddie at home. Freddie at home, I mean, he wasn't quiet or anything, but he was shy. He was much more introvert at home. He didn't have, I think he had didn't believe enough in himself. You know, if you think back to how all these different artists recorded with other people, Freddie recorded with very, very few, if you think about it, because he didn't believe he was good enough to be working with other real stars. For him, I think what changed his mind a little bit was with Montserrat, how he was able to get on so well with her. And you have to remember, for Freddie, she had the best voice in the world, but he was able to write things for her. But, you know, you think of Freddie on Wembley stage, but also think about it, that if there was a room with maybe 6 people in there that he did not know, he would not be able to walk into that room on his own. He just wouldn't be able to do it. If he was with someone, a friend of his, and the two went in, shook hands with everybody, he'd be fine. He would be talking, chatting, laughing, but he could not do it on his own.
Ok, allora Peter, sei mai stato in studio di registrazione con la band? Hai assistito a qualche pezzo, qualche nascita di una o più canzoni?
Okay, so have you ever been in a recording studio with the band? And if yes, did you get to see some of the creative processes behind one or more songs, maybe?
Yeah, it's nobody wanted to be in the recording studio when the band was recording because it just took so long, and half the time it was just so incredibly boring. No, I think the most amazing really was Under Pressure, because it was probably the quickest Queen track I've ever seen recorded. If you think that they spent not even 24 hours on it in Montreux, and then a couple of days later, Freddie spent 12 hours more with David in New York, and then the track went back to Montreux to be mixed. Some things happened immediately. Some things just felt right. The way Freddie would go, he would literally go in to a studio. He might have an idea going on in his head, but very loose. But he would sit at the piano and just play progressions of chords, just to see if something would gel, something would happen. He could do this for maybe 20, 25 minutes, and he would know whether to carry on and create something or just forget it and leave it. If he was going to work with this, he would then talk with Roger, and Roger would have to put down a bass drum track, just the basic beat. So he would just have to do this beat for 5 minutes. And then Freddie could actually work something around it. If the creative juices were flowing, Freddie could be in the studio from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 5 o'clock in the morning, because he was so interested in it, and it was creating things. He was creating the most amazing things, and he just felt good. Other times, if it didn't feel right, he'd leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and say he'd had enough. You know, that was his recording day finished. I suppose for me, I spent more time in the studio for Barcelona than any other of the albums, because I would pick Montserrat up from her hotel and take her to the studio, while Terry would take Freddie to the studio. And so I was sitting there waiting in case for when Montserrat wanted to go back. But that was, again, it was something very, very different, because Freddie was working hand in hand with Mike Moran. And what they created was amazing. Mike could read Freddie's mind. He could see, I mean, you've heard these tapes from Garden Lodge. There was no set plan, there was no tune already created. Yet, if you listen, Mike Moran on the piano was always in the right key. There was no plan for Freddie to be singing this note, this note, this note. Freddie was just singing, but Mike could almost see 2 notes ahead of where Freddie was going to sing, and he would be playing the right chords.
Mike is amazing. I spoke to him. He's amazing.
He's yeah, I mean, he really is a genius.
He's the loveliest. Absolutely.
È vero. Ok, Peter, c'era qualche abitudine particolare che aveva Freddie durante la giornata?
Okay. Was there any particular daily habit of Freddie's? For example, I'm taking myself as an example, I have this particular habit of falling asleep with white noise. So it's one of these things, you know. Was there any particular habit of his?
I suppose for him, the one thing with him was that it didn't matter what time he went to bed, whether it was early at 2 o'clock in the morning, or he'd come home from the studio at 5 o'clock in the morning. There always had to be a cup of tea by the side of his bed at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock every morning. There had to be a cup of tea there. Freddie hated wasting daylight. So it didn't matter, and he could get by with 3 or 4 hours sleep. No problem. I mean, if he had to do it for a whole week, I don't think he would last very long. But it was okay for him to have 4 hours sleep, and he would get up and still be able to do things. But 9 o'clock, tea by the bed, and he would be downstairs for breakfast for 9:30.
That's very British.
Ok, Peter, allora dal 91 ad oggi ti è mai capitato di tornare a Garden Lodge e parlare con Mary? Se sì, come è stato rivedere quella casa dopo la sua scomparsa?
Okay, this is if it's too heavy, just tell it to me. From 1991 until today, have you ever had the chance to go back to Garden Lodge and talk to Mary? And if yes, how was it like to see Freddie's house after his departure?
I've never ever been a person who is like connected to a house. I've always, wherever I've lived, it's been bricks and mortar. But with Garden Lodge, it was really strange because while Freddie was alive, it was a home. He had specifically said to each of us to make that we had to treat it as our home. This is where we lived, this was home. And the thing is, it felt like it until, for me, within minutes of Freddie dying, it then became bricks and mortar again. It lost the warmth, it lost the character. I did go back, I think it was 2003. I was in London and I just for the sake of it, I went past and I just rang on the doorbell. And within, I don't know, 15 seconds or something, I heard a voice. Hello, Phoebe, is that you? And it was Mary. I said, well, yeah, I'm here. Come in, come. So I went in. She was just in the process of having the place rewired because the electrics had been put in 1985. So, they needed upgrading. But the thing is, we were sitting in the same sitting room area where Freddie always used to sit to watch the TV and things. And I remember Mary and I were talking, and I just sort of looked over near the fireplace, and it looked like a kitten, a little cat, but similar in colouring and everything to Delilah. And Mary saw me looking and she said, yes, it's her. It was actually Delilah, but she was so old. Of course she was so old by 2003. I mean, she really had sort of shrunk. But she came walking over, got up onto the couch where I was sitting, and she just put her head on my thigh. And I just spent 2 hours just stroking her gently. And she just was there purring, while Mary and I just talked, just basically going over what we'd done over the last 10 years or so. But yeah, it was just the bricks and mortar again, though, when I went back. There was no feeling of Freddie there. Freddie's things were all there, but they weren't Freddie's things anymore. They were all Mary's. But the house itself, it was as it was minutes after Freddie died. It was bricks and mortar.
Ok. Hai qualche video casalingo di Mercury che fa le prove al piano, qualche demo registrato in casa, non so.
Do you have any home video of Freddie rehearsing at the piano, some home recorded demo, stuff?
I've got no video whatsoever.
It's okay.
Peccato.
Well, the thing is, didn't have a mobile phone in those days,
I know.
and the video camera was this big.
Ah, sì.
I know.
No, and the only other recordings, I mean, people have them, they're all over the internet anyway, the Garden Lodge tapes and things. So
No,
Ok,
no, no, no. I understand it.
ok, Peter. Ci puoi raccontare che rapporto aveva Freddy con i suoi fan o con i suoi genitori? Non so, se vuoi.
If you want, would you please tell us what kind of relationship did Freddie have with his fans and his parents?
They were two totally different entities. His parents he kept very much away from his work life.
Mhm.
The only time there was any sort of interaction was if Queen were doing shows in London, then he would get his parents to go to one show. But they were always, Mary was always with them, and they were always kept away from the dressing room. They were kept away from Freddie's work life because he kept them totally separate. The fans were important to him. I said it many times before because without the fans, Freddie knew he would have had absolutely nothing. There would be no garden lodge, there would be no crystal, artwork, furniture, his amazing life. There would have been none of that without fans. He would have had the talent to create, but without the fans to buy the music, there would have been nothing. And so he always sort of, he very, very rarely ignored them. I mean, I remember if he went outside Garden Lodge, there was almost always a couple of fans out there, and he would always stop for a photograph or an autograph. It was just the thing he did. He knew they were part of his life.
Ok, se non avessi incontrato Freddy, che cosa avresti voluto fare nella vita?
Okay. What would you be doing in your life, or if you hadn't met Freddie?
Now I would be retired. It's always one of those impossible questions, really. It's this whole what if business. I suppose if I had not met Freddie, I would have stayed at the Opera House because it was a job for life when you worked there. From the time you started, whether you started out from school or you sort of came into it as I did, you stayed there till you retired, or they take you out in a box. The only problem is this is also a problem with jobs like that. If you want to do anything other than what you went in as, you have to wait for someone further up the ladder to die for the people to move up a rung. You know what I mean? And so that wasn't, when I had the chance to go, I was given the choice, stay at the Opera House or go with Queen. And I chose Queen because I could not see me sitting at this big table. There would be there was 4 of us at a massive, great table, taking care of the costumes and things. I just couldn't see me doing that for the rest of my life. I couldn't see myself working for Freddie for the rest of my life. But if Freddie was still alive, I would probably still be there. It's always the what if.
Yeah.
Ok. Peter, tu hai più avuto contatti con Brian Roger negli ultimi anni?
Are you still in touch with Roger and Bry?
Brian more so than Roger. We throw emails backwards and forwards. If they're doing a show in the same country that I'm in, then I will go and see them. And I remember, this was a few years ago, but I went and saw them. Actually, it was in Poland because it wasn't so far away from where I live. And the show was just over 2 hours long. And there was, how many? Yeah, because Milan and his father was there as well. But there were Brian, Roger, myself, sitting around a table talking for 4 hours after the show. It was, you know, if you spent so many years in close proximity, we were touring for so much of that time. So you were in each other's company day in, day out. You don't just leave these people behind, you know? And I've not done that in my life. I've still got friends from the Royal Opera House days. I still have a friend from school, you know? We don't talk every week or anything like that, but they're there, and I know that they're there.
Sir Brian, I forgot. Sir Brian.
Yeah, I tell you, seeing those photographs and videos of him like that, I was just, I know it means nothing, but I was really so proud for him.
Me too.
You know,
Me too.
just seeing him like that, and just, I saw the interview he did with someone not long, you know, straight afterwards, and you could just see the pure joy in his
Yeah.
face.
Ok Peter, allora, una volta che hai lasciato Garden Lodge, sei rimasto in contatto con Jim Hutton? Vedi ancora qualcuno dei tuoi vecchi amici?
Okay. Were you still in touch with Jim Hutton when you left Garden Lodge, and are you still seeing your old friends?
Yes, we did stay in touch. I think I last spoke to him maybe a month, 6 weeks before he died. The thing is, I'd known Jim for years before Freddie met Jim. I'd known him from my Selfridges days because Jim used to work in Selfridges, you know, doing gentlemen's bespoke wigs. So I knew him from then. So, I mean, it was just natural to keep on talking with him afterwards. Yeah, I mean, there are still people that I keep in touch with from those days. Last year in Montreux, it was wonderful to see Peter Straker.
Oh,
He was there performing, and we just sat and we talked and laughed and giggled, and, you know, it was just really nice. Because the thing is, you don't have to always, this is what I love, is the fact you don't just sit there and talk about the old days. You talk about what's happening now. You talk, you know, because this is what friendship is about. You don't have to ring a friend once a week, every day, you know, every week of your life. You might not talk to someone for 2 or 3 years, but then you talk to them, and it's like the conversation just carries on from where it left off. I mean, that's what real friendship is. And this is what has stayed with me for 3 or 4 people from those days. As I say, I still keep in touch with a couple of people from school. Even though, again, we don't talk all the time. But when we do, it's just amazing just listening to the voice.
yeah.
Capito?
All right.
Ok, allora sei sempre presente a settembre a Montreux. Per noi ormai è una tappa irrinunciabile. Cosa rappresenta per te? Quali ricordi di Freddy ti evoca quella meravigliosa città?
Okay, so you always go to Montreux every year in September, which is a thing we did as well. So, which memories about Freddie do you get from that town?
I don't know that it's specific memories of Freddie's from Montreux. It's just the feeling of Freddie in Montreux. There's just, I don't know how to put it into words, but there is just this amazing feeling when I'm walking around by the lake or with friends, or just even sitting, looking out over the lake. There's this amazing feeling of peace and this tranquility, even though you might be surrounded by people. There's just the lake, the Alps, the view, just that feeling. I mean, okay, I've been there when there's been big storms and it's snowing and all the rest of it. But generally when I'm there, the weather is just perfect. And if you're actually in the middle of the lake on a boat, Freddie is all around you.
It's true, we've been there last September.
Mhm.
Ok, l'ultima domanda, Peter. Qual è stato il momento, il ricordo che ancora adesso ti emoziona ripensando a Garden Lodge o a Freddy?
Okay, this is the last question. So, what's a memory you still get feelings from when you think about Garden Lodge?
It's combined with, people always ask me what's one of my favorite memories of Freddie. And it really is Freddie at home in Garden Lodge with 4 or 5 of his real friends around him, around that little sitting room that I was sitting room area that I was talking about, with him just sitting there, sitting on the edge of the couch. I can just see him now, sitting there and laughing and laughing and laughing. You know, if you actually believe the film, Freddie was the most depressed, sad person you've ever met. But I knew a very, very different Freddie as well. Of course, I mean, the thing is, I never actually saw Freddie depressed, not even in those last years of his life. But I've seen him sad. But the memory, the never-ending memory for me, is of him sitting on the edge of the couch with his knees together. I just see him and his hands, and he's laughing and laughing.
Ok, perfetto.
That's beautiful.
Ok, Peter, grazie veramente tanto per questa intervista. La volevamo da tanto tempo e volevo ringraziare Milena per aver fatto tutto, per aver organizzato tutte queste cose. Grazie Milena, veramente.
So, thank you for your time and thank you for the interview. And we wanted to thank Milan too for organizing everything. And absolutely, it's been a pleasure and a honor, as I said. So really, just thank you.
Thank you for making it easy and a pleasure for me. Thank you. Thank you very, very much indeed.
I find I still love you.